Now to the papers, and with me to review them this morning are David Morrisset and Madeline Grant. Let me just show you the front pages before we get to what is actually in them. I'm going to show you the Sunday Times first of all, which is the big story this morning: sacked as a minister because I was a Muslim. This is the Tory MP who was a transport minister who says that she was sacked last year with a party whip telling her that she was fired from her ministerial job because of her faith. Plenty of other good stories on the front of the Sunday Times, which we will be covering. The Sunday Telegraph: UK claims Putin is plotting a puppet regime in Ukraine. Also, a lot of coverage this morning about the vaccine deadline for NHS staff, which is set to be pushed back, they say. The Observer: number 10 staff have swipe card data that was logged in probe of the Partygate. Lots more details about the Sue Gray investigation, what she might be looking at. The Daily Mail, the Mail on Sunday this morning, focusing on Whitehall and Boris Johnson declaring war on civil servants refusing to head back to the offices. The Mirror and The Sun both focus, their main stories are about Katie Price. Katie faces jail after arrest over text, they say. And the Sunday Express, it's a poll that they have seen which says almost 3/4 of Britons think Prince Andrew should be stripped of his Duke of York title. Now, before we get into the papers properly, I'm just going to tell you a bit about the reaction to the Sunday Times front page and the former Transport Minister Nusrat Ghani claiming that she was sacked because her Muslim woman minister status was making colleagues feel uncomfortable. Well, after that story broke last night, MPs from all parties came out to support her, including Conservative colleagues Steve Baker, Mark Harper and Tom Tugendhat, who called for an inquiry, and Labour's Tanmanjeet Singh Desi. Then a cabinet minister joined in. Nadhim Zahawi, the Secretary of State for Education, tweeted, "There's no place for Islamophobia or any form of racism in our Conservative Party. Nusrat Ghani is a friend, a colleague and a brilliant parliamentarian. This has to be investigated properly and racism routed out," as #StandWithNus. And not long after that, the government chief whip tweeted to say, "To ensure other whips are not drawn into this matter, I am identifying myself as the person Nusrat Ghani has made claims about this evening. These accusations are completely false," he said, "and I consider them to be defamatory. I have never used those words attributed to me." He then deleted his first thread and reposted with slightly different wording. Well, lots to talk about, as I said, in the papers. What is going on?
It's a very good question. I mean, we use this word far too much in politics nowadays, but when you just take a step back and look at what's just happened, it really is an extraordinary set of events. I mean, I think, as you rightly put it, you know, the chain of events in itself is very odd. But then it gets even crazier when Mark Spencer takes to Twitter late in the night when the story breaks to identify himself as the individual accused of being the source of these claims, and also to publicly deny them. Now, obviously, you know, we can only speculate so much about this because, you know, it's a serious claim that warrants a proper investigation. But I think it really shows how party discipline has collapsed. And it's really not a good look for a serious government to be conducting these kind of, you know, very worrying allegations on a platform like Twitter and responding to them in that way. It suggests a real chaos at the heart of the operation that doesn't seem tenable, even if the Prime Minister were to survive a no confidence vote in the coming weeks. And this creates serious problems going down the line, because Nusrat Ghani is a very popular MP, but highly respected and an excellent performer in Parliament. And also we've seen how a cabinet minister, Nadhim Zahawi, has broken ranks to publicly defend her. So it shows a kind of fractures emerging even within cabinet and at the height of government.
It does give you a sense of the sort of atmosphere at the heart of government at the moment. Another story that you've picked up on another front page of the Sunday Times: the party's inquiry turns its spotlight on Carrie Johnson, the Prime Minister's wife, and her friends. And this is all about what might have been going on in the Prime Minister's flat during lockdown.
Yes, that's right. The Sunday Times is reporting that the bad news keeps coming for the government, that the scope of Sue Gray's investigation could be broadened out to include the Prime Minister's wife, following reports that two of her close friends visited the flat that she shares with the Prime Minister during lockdown. And these are friends who work as advisors within government. But I think that there are some question marks raised about, why were there no officials present at this meeting? If it had been a sort of serious, proper meeting, surely there would have been officials, some are saying. And Sue Gray has been given access to a detailed log of staff movements in and out of the security data. And interestingly, although we obviously can't preempt the results of this report, it seems that the date in which it's being published has been pushed back a little. We were hearing earlier in the week, and now we're hearing it's more like Thursday, which perhaps doesn't bode too well for the number 10.
David Morrisset, you're a Labour Party member, and what do you make of all this?
Well, from Labour point of view, it's like shooting fish in a barrel, really, isn't it? It's just sitting back and letting them get on with it. I mean, as you said, it's every day there's something new. I mean, I think the party, it's interesting that the review is being pushed back, because that just suggests that there's more and more stuff. It's not as straightforward as we thought it was, that Sue Gray is going to be uncovering more stuff than we know about it already. So it just feels like it's such a mess. And every day you open the paper and there's another story.
But this isn't Keir Starmer, is it?
No.
Putting forward policies and leading the way on that. He's obviously leading the polls. This is just things that are going on in government.
You say
that
the
are
mistakes,
benefiting.
but they're really, they're sort of people flouting the law, making up their own rules. I think the country is looking at the government at the moment and seeing that it's one rule for them and one rule for us. I mean, the Carrie Johnson story today is, it looks like they're just flouting the conditions that all of us were told to live under. So it's not policy, but at the moment the noise isn't about Labour policy. The noise is about what's going on in the government and the mess that we're all in.
And Madeline, more noise about, this is Gavin Williamson, the other story you've picked on the Sunday Times. Gavin Williamson accused over this threat. This is the threat to cancel a new school. This is all about the claims of blackmail that was going on.
Yes, he's come out. It does seem like this weekend has seen a lot of people being publicly named and people sort of showing the receipts for the first time. Christian Wakeford has come out and named Gavin Williamson as the MP that he accuses of threatening him to cancel a new school in his constituency as punishment for going against the government. And we also expect that on that front, William Wragg is going to be talking to the police early next week about similar allegations of blackmail against Tory MPs who threaten to oppose the government or send in their letters. You
watch this very closely. Do you think this is all going to add up to a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister this week?
Well, it's a very boring answer, but I really do think that it depends on the findings of the report, which we're still just speculating about now. And also, I think how a big determiner will be how the findings of the report register with MPs. They will. I think MPs will be able to decide for themselves if the level of outraged correspondence that they're getting from their constituents, the kind of reception that they have when they return to their surgeries next Friday. I think these sorts of things will also inform the decision. And I suspect that most will reserve judgment until that point, because despite all the chaos in number 10, there are still fears that replacing the Prime Minister could create another power vacuum that could create perhaps even greater chaos. If such a thing is possible.
David, let's move on to some of the stories that you have picked a rather different flavour. Skiing, should we start with that?
Well, yes, so this is the story of Britain's first Alpine Skiing World Cup gold medal. And I think we should just pause about that sentence for a second.
It's the first time, I think, in 55 years.
55 years. I mean, it's unbelievable. And it's Dave Ridings, and he won the gold medal. He's I think, the oldest person to ever win it at 35. And he's skiing against, Austrians and Finns and Norwegians. And I know Lancashire can get a bit nippy, but I don't think he learned skiing going to school like those guys did. So it's an enormous achievement. I think the pictures of him are just delightful on the front pages. The papers are full of really worrying and awful stories, and this, I think, is something that is really brilliant to see.
And what about the story inside the Times about the cyclists?
So this is a story, it's like that story of what could possibly go wrong. I can't find it. But it's like...
the updated highway code,
cyclists are being told that what they should do from now on, is cycle in the middle of the road. I mean, I cycle a lot, and it's always keeping to the left, but we're now being told in order to be seen, they should be cycling right in the middle of the road. So, I mean, I cycle and I hear motorists beeping their horn at me all the time for no reason. So now that I'm being asked to be in the middle of the road,
or two abreast just to protect each other.
it's going to be crazy.
Derby as well, football. Let's do a bit about that.
So Derby County, obviously, there's a lot about them. They're just about to go into liquidation. Threatened with liquidation, and I know that football is a business. We know that now, but these clubs, Derby, Bury, went out of circulation, went out of business recently, and they're at the heart of their communities. And so the law has to be changed. I think there's something has to be looked at that because it's only the supporters in the end who are going to suffer, and I think the law has to be looked at about how it is mismanagement, but how they can be protected to keep them at the heart of their community. They're much more than football clubs. It's not a football story. And I think we just need to highlight that a bit today.
And Madeline, we've got the Deputy Prime Minister coming in. We were talking to him about this, but lots of coverage this morning about Ukraine and these claims from the UK that Putin is planning to invade and put in a puppet regime in Ukraine.
Yes, that's right. We report that the Foreign Secretary took what was actually quite an unusual step of publicly releasing specially declassified intelligence, naming a former Ukrainian MP called Yevgeny Muryev as the Kremlin's preferred candidate to take over the country following an invasion and to be installed as a puppet leader thereafter. And he is the leader of a small pro-Russian party, which currently has no seats in the Ukrainian parliament. And he's denied the claims already. But to be honest, despite all the chaos that we've just been talking about in number 10 at the moment, the government's robust response to Ukraine, I think, is one of the few areas where you get a sense of genuine resolve and genuine strategic thinking at the heart of what they're doing, especially when you compare it to some of the dithering and quite contradictory pronouncements we've been hearing from some of our other allies. So I think what the FCO says about this should be taken very seriously.
And David, let's just talk quickly about Leslie Manville, who's in the papers telling young people to be quiet in the theatre. You know her very well, not least because you've just been in you're filming, or you've been filming in a new BBC drama.
I've just been doing a drama with her called Sherwood. She's a wonderful actress, and there's a great interview with her in the You magazine. And she does talk about, she was in the theatre and there was quite a rowdy bunch of kids and she went up and confronted them, thank goodness. I mean, I was in the theatre myself last night and audiences are getting up and down and walking and getting their phones out. It really is something that we need to sort of grab hold of, really. But this interview is wonderful. She talks about her life. She's someone we should really celebrate. She's wonderful, and she talks about trying to get to the Oscars, which is, when you think about stress, her story around that is quite wonderful.
Well, David Morrisset and Madeline Grant, thank you both very much for joining me to look at the papers this morning.